It's that time again. Apple has blessed us with its latest creations that are ready for you to purchase in order to improve your life immediately. We have new iPad mini. We have new regular iPad. We have new Apple Watches. We have the iPhone 13 and we have the iPhone 13 Pro. I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, the coolest thing I saw was the cinematic mode on the phones with the rack focus activity. I want to try that out. I do have some models in front of me to give you something to look at as well. I'm going to slide them in here. So before we get into today's video, I want to mention that I'm going to have an upcoming giveaway for a bunch of iPhone 13. So make sure to subscribe down below. And also the later cases for the new iPhone 13 and 13 Pro have already launched on the site and they're sitting in front of me right here. These are the thinnest cases you're going to want to put on your brand new iPhone. Check out how easy it is. Slap it on, fits perfect, designed an entirely new cover around the camera section. More details and photos are available on the website. Also, the best screen protectors, the only ones that I use for iPhone 13 and 13 Pro, also available on the site. So make sure to go check out the links in the description and you can actually order your later case before you even get your iPhone 13. So check that out. You can probably tell on the left-hand side, we have the iPhone 12, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, and then these comparisons are some of the models that have been sent to me leading up to today's announcement, including, I don't know, this one, which is probably your closest representation of the iPhone 13 with the new camera layout. Yeah, so it's shifted ever so slightly. It's a bit of a different look. Of course, you have a new chip inside. You have a variety of new features in the camera app. You have a slightly brighter display, and you have a slightly smaller notch on the front, about 20% smaller. It's kind of impossible to pick up on these models. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway here is they found a way to shrink it while keeping the Face ID components in there. No, there is no USB Type-C or anything crazy like that. But it will be brighter outdoors, and apparently the battery life is improved. So obviously the regular 13 model is going to be available in a couple of different sizes represented right here. So there's your 5.4-inch display and your 6.1-inch display. Quite a big gap there, but the mini hangs around for at least another generation. A15 chip is going to be more powerful, and the mini is going to start at $699, whereas the standard iPhone 13 is going to be $799. There's going to be some new colors to choose from, 5 in total, so everyone can know immediately that you have the latest iPhone. Now let's talk about the Pro models. So this is the old Pro and Pro Max. This was the first model that was sent to me of what might be the upcoming iPhone 13. Actually, these camera modules are exaggerated. I think this one is probably the best representation here to what ended up happening. So yes, bigger camera units, visually speaking, compared to the previous generation, but not quite as big as some of the more cartoonish looking variants that were out there. Now, these are bigger for good reason. There's been camera enhancements, especially when it comes to that ultra wide camera, which they claim is gonna have increased low light performance. The other thing that you're gonna be able to do on the Pro models that stood out to me, well, first up, the cinematic mode. So if you watch the presentation, this is that ability to select what's in focus or to let the camera make decisions on its own based on framing and faces that enter the display. It was a fairly slick demo, but it was short, so we don't exactly know in practice how well that's gonna work. But certainly this ability is something that anyone who makes films on their iPhone is gonna be happy to experiment with. The other thing that is Pro exclusive is going to be ProRes. You are now able to record in a much more useful video format. It's something that we've used here in the studio for a really long time. It's super easy to edit with. You can you have a little more flexibility when it comes to color correction. If you're just in any type of pro environment, then you probably heard of ProRes. Now you can record that directly in the phone And since it is a bigger file size, they're even going to put out a 1 terabyte version of the Pro model of the phone, so you have even more storage space. So the other thing the Pro model is going to see on the front on the display is better brightness than the regular 13 model. So you're going to have up to 1,000 nits peak brightness out, in the outdoors. That can pay off. It's just going to give you that vibrant appearance as well. I'm one of these people, I got the screen on blast, so I like to see it. And then the other big feature, 120 hertz ProMotion. Apple likes to call it ProMotion. Everyone else just says what the actual refresh is. And so it's finally happening on a phone. We've had it on the iPads, and it's been rumored forever. Next gen, maybe the next generation, but it's in the phone, and it's got to be there because it's a flagship feature. And I know a lot of people, people were split on how important they thought it was, but for me at this price point, put the ProMotion, put the 120 hertz. Gamers like it. It makes the phone feel faster, and Apple claims to have their very own specific implementation, which allows for some battery savings because it's dynamic. It's able to shift depending on if you need that extra refresh or not. And then the other thing Apple mentioned is that the new Pro Max model is the best battery life ever on an iPhone. So it's probably something to do with those enhancements, but also just packing a large battery in there to begin with. So the Pro model is going to be available in 2 sizes, Pro and Pro Max, as it was before, 6.1 inches and 6.7 inches respectively. And pricing is going to start at $1,000 and then $1,099 for the Max model. Obviously, if you expand the storage, you can expect to see even bigger price tags. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the watches real quick. We are now on Series 7, and it wasn't like a huge overhaul. It obviously isn't this new design that's been rumored. We're gonna have to wait for that one with the flat edges and so on. It kind of looks like the old model, but they've got a more aggressive screen-to-body ratio, a more aggressive curve around the sides. They've packed more display into the same form factor. They got some new watch bands. They made it more dust resistant. It's still water resistant like the previous version. It's available in 5 colors, and if you want to get into Apple's whole fitness ecosystem, then they recommend that you have one of these very strongly. They're like, this is your ticket to the party, the watch. And then you can work out anywhere and watch your favorite person do jumping jacks or whatever it is. All right, now let's talk about iPad mini. iPad mini was well overdue for an update, and it's getting kind of the iPad Air / iPad Pro treatment with the flat edges and finally a shrinking of the bezel, more importantly, the chin and the forehead. I like the mini form factor. I think a lot of people are fans of it. It's a little easier to hold for long periods because it's small. It's more affordable than the Pro models in the lineup. You now can use the 2nd generation Apple Pencil magnetically, slap it over to the side. You have Touch ID built in. You have camera improvements, obviously, compared to the previous version. They launched a set of smart folio cases specifically for it. I saw some of the demonstrations in the presentation that made sense to me around gaming. It's kind of a nice size for things like gaming, still powerful enough to play most mobile games, but with a form factor that just kind of makes sense for thumb input compared to some of the bigger iPads, which at least in my experience on the couch can get a little awkward unless you want to stand them up and use a controller or something like that. Price-wise, it's coming in at $499, so it's pricier than that entry-level iPad, but it's obviously not quite up to the Pro levels. Speaking of the new entry-level iPad, it's gonna have A13 Bionic inside, and this is your low price point that Apple seems to be targeting at education or up against Chromebooks. It's also got a 12-megapixel ultra-wide camera on it. It's not the flashiest looking thing, right? You still got the chin, you got the forehead. It's an old looking form factor. So what's the key with this entry-level iPad? It's definitely price. It's coming in at $329, which is obviously a lot more approachable than those other iPad prices with the mini at $499, and you know what the Pro situation is. So with that $329 price brings in the clientele that's cost sensitive, education market, students, developers who need an iOS device. They'll take any iOS device. It's not going to be as fast as the other iPads, but it gives people an option that want to spend less than $400. All right, so it's not every day that you have an Apple event. It's not every day that you get brand new iPhones. Apple puts a tremendous amount of energy into their events, and every single time it feels like an experience. There are drones flying. You are moving from location to location. You're hearing about the environmental savings that are taking place and all the reasons why you need their new gear. Apple does a tremendous job. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's flashy. I think Kirk bought 17 Apple Watches during the presentation. They just know how to market. They know how to launch products. These are not as exciting as the last generation. These are more of a bump, obviously. It's not an overhaul to the design language. So I don't know how big of a deal it is comparatively, but some of those camera features are interesting to me and things that I want to try out. And anytime you're telling me there's enhanced battery life, I'm also completely on board with that. And then the 120 hertz is the other big takeaway for me. It's unfortunate it's only on the Pro model, but you know, they try to create that distinction to give people a reason to upgrade, and I think that is going to be a reason for some customers. Anyway, make sure to keep it locked on the channel because, as mentioned previously, for sure I'm going to be doing some iPhone 13 giveaways very soon. So subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. And also, if you know you want an ultra-thin case for your upcoming iPhone 13 or 13 Pro, make sure to check out Later Case. You can go to the website and see what's available for the new 13 and get your order in so you're the first to receive your super thin Later Case to go with your brand new iPhone. Thank you very much for joining this ultra fast, speedy recap. Congratulations, Apple. Another year, another iPhone.